Hey guys, welcome to October 18th DVD update, where I talk about how the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I said, I'm going to try and get back on schedule of doing these every week and a half, 2 weeks or so, depending on how much stuff I have to show and things like that. Now, the first title I got is from Warner Brothers, and it's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, starring Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Now, I'm going to do my best to try and explain the story of this. It's Bette Davis' character, when she was younger, was in a vaudeville act called Baby Jane, which was extremely popular. They had dolls. She was basically a singer and would basically do everything. You know, it's dancing, singing, these crazy songs like I've written a letter to Daddy. And that song comes to play later in the film. And she was very successful. But her sister and mother were very neglected. The father was the manager. They really just were sort of just there. You know, the father was very mean. And it was, you know, Baby Jane's character was all about herself and not very nice. And 30 years, I think in the 30s, they both had acting careers. Bette Davis' character, you know, who was Baby Jane early in the film, you know, she's very terrible. She's not very good. And Joan Crawford is great. Everyone likes her. She's in all these big movies. But their contract is every time Joan Crawford's character, Blanche, does a movie, they have to put her sister, you know, Baby Jane, Bette Davis, in a movie. And it's a problem. And then you see Joan Crawford's character get run over, and she's become crippled. So then it's, I think, another 30 years after that, in the 60s. And at this period of time, you know, Bette Davis is sort of taking care of her, and they've been living in the same house for years, and Joan Crawford never can leave this house. She's basically stuck there dealing with Bette Davis, who's becoming crazier by the minute, is an absolute alcoholic. And it was kind of tolerable at first, but now the TV is starting to play the films with Blanche, the sister who's in the wheelchair, and she's become extremely popular again. You know, she's getting fan mail sent to the house, and it's driving Bette Davis crazy. And Bette Davis has this idea of trying to revive her career as Baby Jane, and it's all this crazy things going on with Bette Davis, you know, not feeding her or trying to scare her into eating by putting a rat in the food, and all these crazy things. And it's such a well done, perfect movie, and you really feel like so terrible for what Joan Crawford's character is going through. Like, the acting in this is outstanding, and I love how with Bette Davis they put her in this makeup, and she's basically has the exact same look that she did as Baby Jane now when she's like in her 60s, which gives it this extreme creepiness, and especially when she's trying to revive the act. She hires a piano person to come in and try, and it's just such a well done, perfect movie. Like, this is absolute must see. And I like too that they decided to put the movie in black and white, because in '62 color was pretty much becoming the norm, and I'm glad they decided to do that, because I don't think it would have worked as well. I know they did a remake of this, like in the 1990s, I think. I've never seen it though. I can't imagine it would be very good though. The next one I got from Warner as well is the Chernobyl Diaries. This one, I really enjoyed this one. It's from the, you know, Orwin Peely, I think, who was the director and you know, of the original Paranormal Activity, and he produces the sequels. And some people said this is found footage. It's not a found footage film. It's about a group of kids that go to Russia. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's, sometimes I screw up the areas this takes place, but it's basically where Chernobyl, where the terrible nuclear reactor went off, and the entire town had to be abandoned because of the radiation was so terrible, and people, you know, you still can't go to this place now. So there's an extreme tourism group that these kids go on with this guy that he kind of does illegally, which is basically sneaking people in to Chernobyl. And when they get there, they notice something's very weird. Normally he can kind of pay them off and get in, and now something's going on. He can't pay off the guards to get into this place, so they sneak in around the back, which is very stupid. And going there, they notice something is wrong, and that, sorry, make sure I'm saying the right place, something is wrong, and they start to hear things there and see things, and then one of the characters ends up missing and gets killed by whatever it is that's there. I thought this was a pretty well done movie. I mean, it's not a perfect film, but I really liked it. I love movies in these kind of settings. There really hasn't been many things in like an abandoned type place like this. I thought it was interesting. I'd be interested in seeing if they do another one of these. But, you know, I think, you know, this was, I personally, though, really like this one. Like I said, it's not, like, absolutely perfect, but I thought it was pretty well done and actually pretty creepy, some of the stuff. And like I said, too, it's not found footage, it's just shot, you know, steady cam the whole movie. So it's more like you're there with them, which I like that technique to it. But this is definitely one that I would check out. I thought was a pretty cool horror movie. Now the next one from Warner Brothers I'm going to talk about is Magic Mike. Now I know from the trailers and what some people may have heard about the film, you might think it was all like strippers and that's all the whole movie was. You know, just like strip scenes and things like that. You know, people going to the male strip clubs. But it has a actually pretty good story behind it. It's from Steven Soderbergh, and it's filmed in the style of his more indie films, like Bubble, which was one that I really liked, where it was, you know, all the people in it were not actually actors, and it was just people that he had found from this town. It's filmed like that, a lot of real long shots, you know, far back scenes where it's long takes. But the plot of the movie is Channing Tatum works, you know, he has all these kind of jobs that he does. He works construction, and when he's working construction, there's a new guy that starts working there, and he's really not doesn't really know too much about what he's doing. He's not prepared. You can tell the guy just doesn't really have things together. And the same night, he ends up running into the guy out, you know, trying to get into a club, and he sees Channing Tatum and he's like, "Can you please help me get into this club?" And he's like, you know, the guy's dressed poorly, but he helps get him in the club, and the club they end up meeting these girls, and, you know, Channing Tatum's talking to the girls saying, you know, you got to come here and point at this flyer, and it's for a male strip club. So it turns out on the side, Channing Tatum is a male stripper, male exotic dancer, so he ends up becoming friends with the guy that he worked with on the job site, and, you know, taking him into this club, and helping him, you know, training him and things like that. There's not a whole ton of that stuff, but he's sort of helping the guy kind of get himself together and get, you know, start, you know, making some money and things like that. And it's, you know, Matthew McConaughey is the head of the strip club, and he was actually really pretty good in this. Enrique Iglesias played the kind of like the DJ, and he actually had some good stuff. I don't know if he's done a lot of acting before. He might have. I know he does some more stand-up, but he did a really pretty good job in this. Olivia Munn, who was in The Babymakers recently, she has a small part in it. She was good, but it's basically, you know, the club they're working at. At the same time, Channing Tatum, you know, even though he's there, even though things are going pretty well, he has a pretty good deal and he's making some money there, he's not really happy. He has this dream of opening, you know, basically making his own custom-made, like real fancy furniture and things like that. And he tries to get a loan for it, but because all the jobs that he's done have been all cash, you know, under the table, things like that, he has absolutely no credit, so he can't get a loan. So even though he's doing this, he's pretty much secretly in the back of his mind miserable, and he doesn't have a lot of luck with his relationships. He's sort of seeing Olivia Munn's character, and he's trying to, you know, get with the sister of the guy who he's been helping out, and just, you know, things just aren't perfect. She doesn't like the fact that he's a stripper and doesn't really think he's a great person. So it's all these different kind of things, you know. I don't know, I think this is definitely worth watching. Like I said, it has a pretty decent story to it. It's not all just, you know, strip scenes and things like that. It really does have a good story behind it. Not a perfect movie, but I thought it, you know, it definitely has, you know, I don't know, I just thought it was definitely worth watching. Now, the next one from Disney is the Santa Claus collection, and I've always liked these films. Like, I don't love the later sequels. Well, they were kind of fun, but my favorite, you know, ever, like when it comes to like top Christmas movies, the first Santa Claus is like an absolute must-own, must-see Christmas film. Like, I have loved it since I saw it in the theaters. You know, it's one of those kind of things that I watch like pretty much every Christmas, kind of like Christmas Story. To me, that was always kind of like the one that I would always pick to watch. And it stars Tim Allen, and it's Tim Allen who's, you know, basically was recently divorced in the first movie from his wife, and he's taking his son for Christmas. And that evening, when, you know, I think it was on, yeah, that's the kind of things they're going through in that Christmas, they hear something on the roof, and Tim Allen goes out there and yells up there, and basically the real Santa's on the roof, falls down and dies, so, and disappears. And Tim Allen, basically it says you have to put on this suit, and because he was responsible for Santa Claus's death, he has to wear the suit, and then he becomes the new Kris Kringle. And that's the main concept to it, is him, and when he puts on this suit, what things are happening to him, like he starts to grow a beard, he starts to get fat, he basically is transforming into Santa, and everyone around him is kind of like, what's going on, thinks that he's like just gaining weight like crazy, and it's a very fun movie. And the things he goes through, the one kid from Addams Family Values and tons of movies plays the helper elf in it. Like I said, this is like a really good, fun Christmas film. The second one was when he has to get married, otherwise he won't be Santa anymore, so he has to find a wife before Christmas. And the third one was with Martin Short as like a Mr. Freeze character, and he's like making robot versions of it. It wasn't as good, but the first and second ones were two of the favorite ones, but these is an absolute must-own Christmas movies, especially the first one. Like I said, the ones that I really have always loved. The next one is called The Victim, and I was really interested in seeing this, and at first in the beginning I'm like, oh no, Danielle Harris is only in this for like a second, because it opens with her having sex with this guy, getting strangled and killed. So I'm like, okay, that was it. But she's in the movie through flashbacks. But the movie stars Michael Biehn and Jennifer Blanc, who's his wife in real life. And it's basically, Danielle Harris and Jennifer Blanc are basically strippers. And they end up going out to the woods with these cops to end up sort of pretty much just to get drugs from them. So they have sex with them to get drugs. And, the one guy gets too rough and ends up killing Danielle Harris's character by mistake. And then Jennifer Blanc overhears them saying, we got to kill her, we got to hide the body. So they're going to come for Jennifer Blanc's character. So then she ends up running off into the woods, finding a cabin, and it's Michael Biehn out there by himself, who's real, he doesn't really want to be around people. He just sort of is real to himself. And she's like, please help me, I don't know what to do. And, so it's basically, that's the concept with them, and him hiding her out, and, all the things that are going on. I thought this was pretty well done, though. I thought the acting was really pretty good. I like a lot of what happened. I thought it was just a pretty good one. I don't want to say too much about it without ruining much. Like I said, though, don't think Danielle Harris is just in that one part if you watch it. She's actually, like I said, through flashbacks throughout the whole movie. But it really was a very well done, kind of hiding out, and then what ends up happening to them and things like that. And I will say, too, it has a very, 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 very good ending. Which is very creepy, too. The next one I got is a Walmart exclusive, and I had to get it, and I'm sure there'll probably be a box set down the line of this, but it's Porky's. Everybody pretty much knows these, the teen sex comedy from the 80s. This is just a classic one. Now this one, I had heard a lot of people talking about, like in comments to me. It's called Incision. I think it's Incision. Hopefully I'm saying it right. But it stars Tracy Lords as the mother, and the mother, she did a really good job as this crazy, wall-eyed mother. I think it's definitely, I think Tracy Lord's best performance I think I've ever seen. But it's basically about these two sisters. The older sister is just graduating high school, and she's got, really wants to be in the medical field. And she's got these weird, like, sexual fantasies of having sex with corpses and dead bodies and these dead women. All this crazy fantasies. And there's something seriously screwed up about her. She's going to therapy because the parents don't want to pay, because the younger sister has major medical problems, like lung problems and things like that. They don't want to pay to send her to therapy, which is not a good thing. So they send her to a priest played by John Waters. And John Waters was great in the little scenes that he had. And it's all about this girl's fantasies and all these crazy things that are going on. And Malcolm McDowell has a part in it as the teacher. It's got a lot of really good actors in this. It's a really weird, creepy-ass movie. And like what happens and the payoff is like, oh my God. This one definitely, I don't want to ruin anything about it. Just look at the trailer for this one. This was a really good, weird one. The next one I got from Lionsgate is Everybody's Fine, with Robert De Niro and Drew Barrymore, Kate Beckinsale, and Sam Rockwell. I remember hearing a lot about this when it first came out. A lot of people saying one of the most depressing movies of the year, and just so sad. I remember hearing a lot of stuff about this. This is kind of one of those things, like, if I would have saw it in theaters, it would be like terrible, like, or trying to hold it back. But it's, you know, it's a very sad movie. Like, it's very well done. But just be prepared for like a cry fest, like a serious cry fest. It's Robert De Niro, and his wife died about 6 or 7 months ago, and he wants the kids to come, you know, visit for this. I think it was like the summer or the fall. I don't remember exactly when the first time he wanted him to come visit, but they all end up canceling on him. So it opens with him buying a grill, buying all these expensive things to cook, to try and impress the kids, to show that he's okay, that he's managing on his own, and they all cancel on him because one of the kids, you know, is in Mexico and something has happened to them. So it's them talking back and forth, and they're trying to figure out what's going on with their brother, and they're not telling Robert De Niro about it. So they're kind of playing these games with him and not telling him because they don't feel like they can tell him this because they don't know how he's going to react. So it's all this, and then he ends up just saying, you know, he's not well because he's got like a lung thing going on. He's not supposed to fly. So he ends up just saying, listen, just doesn't care anymore. Ends up taking a train to visit the kids and surprise them one by one. It's basically like, if they're not going to come see me, I'm going to go see them. So he travels all around the country in the train, goes to see him, and they're all pretty much brushing him off, trying to get rid of him. He can tell they're lying to get rid of him. He doesn't know what's going on, but he's like seriously upset by the whole thing. And, you know, that's the main thing, is just him and with the kids that, you know, are just sort of, you know, brushing him off. And there's a good reason for it. But it's just so sad what's going on. And Robert De Niro did a really good job in this. It's a very good family, you know, movie about families and things like that. But it is absolutely depressing. You know, that's a fair warning to that. The next one I was really interested in seeing, it's called Bait 3D, and I watched the 3D one, and I thought it looked actually pretty good in 3D. It's basically about in Australia. Now, it was funny, you know, it was in Australia, but the Australian actors in it hardly had accents. Like, I almost didn't hear it for most of them. Or for some reason, I never hear Australian accents too much. Like, there's real mild forms of Australian accents that I don't even notice. So, like, a couple of them are like, were they Americans? I don't know. But you may like really notice them, but I didn't. And I always like Australian accents, but I didn't hear them in this. But it's basically in Australia. At first I thought it was these American kids. Like I told you, I wasn't hearing them right. I don't know. But there's it opens with the one kid's brother ends up getting eaten. I think it's his brother ends up getting eaten by a shark. And it's like a year later, the girlfriend that the one guy was with, they broke up because the whole thing was too depressing. And it might have been her brother. I kind of get confused about that part. But basically what ends up happening is there are people who are in a supermarket, and a huge tsunami wave comes and floods everything. And these two sharks, it's two of them, end up getting stuck in the parking garage to the market and the market itself. So these people, you know, that live through it end up trapped in there, and they're trying to figure out how the hell they're going to get out of this thing without getting eaten by the shark, because there's all these scenes of the shark eating people. And, you know, they run into all kinds of problems along the way, like the electric cords are just about to go into the water, and, if they don't do something about that, they're all going to become electrocuted. It was very, very well done, though. I thought there were some great shark attack scenes in this, and they used some pretty cool practical effects and mixed it together. And the 3D, if you have a 3D TV, definitely watch this. And I think there's like a DVD Blu-ray version. It's actually in a DVD case at Walmart for like $9.99. It was real cheap, so definitely get it at Walmart. It was definitely one I would recommend. And the next ones I got are from Kino. The first one is from the Mario Bava collection. It's The House of Exorcism and Lisa and the Devil. It's actually the same movie, but when it first came out, the producer didn't like the original cut, so ended up adding in these like exorcism scenes that kind of cash in on the Exorcist, The Exorcist, because it came out around the same time. So they did that kind of stuff back then, kind of doing kind of things, kind of trick people into seeing them and things like that, or get audiences in. But the idea is about these two girls that are on a tour. I think it's in Italy. I think it was Italy. I wasn't exactly sure. But they're on this tour, and they see this mural, and it's like, this guy looks like the devil a little bit, like carrying a person. It's supposed to be the devil with a person on his back, like this body. And she ends up wandering off the tour and ends up going into this shop and seeing someone that looks just like the guy in the picture. And it's the guy is played by the guy who was in Faceless, which one I always talk about a lot, which was a really weird one I liked from the 80s. He was in a bunch of different movies, but she ends up seeing him and kind of gets freaked out. And he's making this weird dummy, like putting together this dummy thing, like it looks like the mural. And at some points too, the dummy's like alive and stuff. She ends up going and finding a friend, and they end up in like I think it was a cab or something. Like sometimes these are hard to follow, but they're in like a cab, and they end up breaking down in front of this mansion. And end up, the woman who's there is like, oh, you can't stay. And the son's like, oh, I'd love you to stay. And the son, sees the Lisa girl, and she reminds him of his old girlfriend who died, and all the kind of things that end up happening in the house and stuff. I thought it was an interesting one. And the next one is Black Sunday from the Mario Bava collection as well. This was about 200 years ago. There was like a woman who was, burned at the stake. No, she wasn't burned at the stake. She was killed as a witch, and they put this kind of cool mask on her face. It's definitely, if you see the new Rob Zombie movie, Lords of Salem trailer, you can tell like he got some, vibes and stuff from this because of this mask and stuff that they put on. But she ends up getting killed. 200 years later, this, it was 200 years later. She says she puts a curse on everybody and it's going to come back. But 200 years later, they're like in a horse and carriage and this guy, and they end up breaking down and end up wandering into the tomb where she's buried, and they end up sort of screwing around with stuff. They take like a cross or something that was on top of the tomb, and by doing that, she ends up coming back to life. And, all the things that happen along the way. Like I said, sometimes these things are a little bit hard to follow, but this was very, very well photographed. Like, I like these kind of weird, gothic, black and white films. It was very well done, but like I said, sometimes I get have a hard time following some of these. The next one, now this is one that I've been looking forward to seeing for a long time, and it was supposed to be a 3D movie. I think it was supposed to be theatrical, so I don't know what happened to this. But it was filmed in 3D. I wish the Blu-ray would have been 3D. I don't know why it isn't. And it's Joe Dante's The Whole 3D, because like you could tell a lot of stuff would have been really cool in 3D. But it's about these people that a family that moves into a new house, and in the basement they discover this closed off door, like the trap door that they open up, and they look down there and there's this hole, and they drop things down there to see if they can hear noise. Like they don't hear anything, and it's basically like an never-ending hole thing down there. And by opening it up, they end up letting this sort of like spirits and things out of it. They kind of mess with your fear. So the things you're afraid of come and get you and things like that. It's a PG-13, so it's a little tame. But I wasn't worried about that because Joe Dante, most of his movies are PG-13 and PG, like Gremlins and stuff. This was very different. It wasn't really that great. I didn't absolutely love this. I thought it was okay. I like some parts about it. I mean, the best part of it to me was, that Dick Miller got a cameo. I wish he would have actually gotten to do more in it. He just had a little teeny cameo as a pizza guy. But I've always been a fan of Dick Miller. I'm glad that Joe Dante always puts him in his stuff. He has forever. Dick Miller's been in, Bucket of Blood, from Gremlins to everything. And I met him years back at a convention. Very cool guy. But like I said, I would like to have seen it in 3D. And it was interesting about what they're trying to do, but not amazing. And of course I had to get E.T., the anniversary edition. Now the first thing I'm going to say that I'm sure most people wonder about this is the theatrical cut. Yes, this is the original version. They don't even include anywhere on this the 20th anniversary, I think it was the 20th anniversary cut, where the guns became walkie-talkies. And they made the CGI E.T., that one of the biggest disasters in movie history. Most people were so against that and so upset with those changes. And I know why he did it at the time. It was because, very close after 9/11, and people were kind of in a mindset then, didn't really want to see anything violent and things like that. So I kind of got where he was coming from when he did that, but I'm so glad that he just did not include that. So you have to keep you know, the original DVD if you want to still have, you know, what was the disaster of the 20th anniversary one. But, you know, E.T. is such a good movie. I'm so glad that it's the unscrewed with version. And I really respect Steven Spielberg now for saying, you know, he's going to let his movies just live as they were. You know, he's going to clean them up, you know, remaster them and all that kind of stuff. But he's not going to change them, you know, because George Lucas is always changing things. And I don't know, he can do what he wants with this stuff. But I think movies, you know, I have the same vibe that he does. I think they should be as they were when you saw them. You know, you shouldn't change anything. A movie should exist from the time that it was, and that's what it is. You don't add a whole lot of crap to it because that's not the same movie. But, you know, this is a must-have, though. The next ones are from Comedy Central, and there's two stand-up ones, Dimitri Martin and Jeff Dunham. I think the Jeff Dunham one was a little bit more interesting. I don't love Jeff Dunham. Like, I don't find him super funny. I was interested in seeing, because I really had never watched any of his stand-up. This was all done, like, horror movies and stuff with, like, he kind of made the puppets look like monsters and things like that. Just don't find him super hilarious. The, on the other hand, though, this Key and Peele show, Season 1, I thought was really funny. It's very, very much like the Chappelle Show. The same kind of vibe with both of them there in front of these TVs, kind of telling jokes and just sort of talking about their lives, and then it cuts to skits. And there were some really funny ones. And one with them trying to get medical marijuana and stuff was really ridiculous about, you know, going in there and saying what your problems was, and he was making up all these crazy things. I don't know, it's the two guys, too, are from Mad TV, because I knew I had seen them and stuff. They were also both in Wanderlust, which I remembered after I watched the way they were. But it's a really funny one. If you like Chappelle's Show, it's got that same vibe to it. The next one I was interested in seeing, it's from Sony, and it's the remake, the 70s film Coma. Now, I don't really remember the original Coma, so I don't know if the one kind of out-of-place side plot that was in this was in that one. Because there was a side plot of this that I didn't love. It kind of took away a little bit from the movies, the way it was flowing. But it stars Laura Ambrose, who was, you know, in Wanderlust as well, but she was in 6 Feet Under as the sister. The daughter in 6 Feet Under, and you know, 6 Feet Under is a great show. But this is about, she's a medical student, and she's basically apprenticing at this hospital, and there's some very weird things going on here. That people are going into comas under very, you know, small-time kind of operations. This one guy's knee was screwed up, and he just gets put under, and he goes into coma from the, you know, morphine or whatever it is, the stuff that puts you to sleep. And it's going on a lot. She starts to look into the files and noticing that there's been like 7 or 8 cases of this in the last year, and it just doesn't make any sense. So it's her investigating what's going on and why they're going to this coma clinic, which is where they put people, you know, and keep them there, and they take care of them in this coma clinic, but there's all these bad things going on there. So it's her trying to get in there, see what's going on, and, you know, by investigating this, though, things start to happen to her. She starts to get followed, and someone tries to kidnap her, so there's all these things going on at the same time, and you can tell that all the doctors are in on this thing. It's a very, I enjoyed it, though. Like, it's almost 3 hours, but I was able to watch it, you know, without getting bored or anything. So I don't know, I really thought this was pretty good. It has a lot of really good cast in it. You know, Gina Davis, James Woods, Richard Dreyfuss, Ellen Bernstein, you know, from Exorcist and Requiem for a Dream. I like this. The next ones are from VCI. This is a really weird show called Big John, Little John. It stars the kid who played Cousin Oliver, you know, Cousin Oliver in the Brady Bunch. You know, a lot of people don't like Cousin Oliver because they almost blame him for the end of the Brady Bunch. I don't think that, though. I thought he was kind of interesting. They needed someone younger, so they kind of brought him in. Like, a lot of shows do that, you know, bring in someone younger to try and have a kid on the show again when everybody grows up. But it's this guy who ends up, it has this like interesting song like Gilligan's Island, because it's by Sherwood Schwartz, who created Gilligan's Island. So it's like, Big John, Little John, drinks from the fountain of youth. So it's this guy who ends up, like, some point, he's like on going out on a trip or something, ends up drinking from the fountain of youth. And it ends up catching up with him when he goes back. He's a teacher, so he ends up all of a sudden turning into Robbie Rice, like a young character, and it's all these like situations that he gets into, and like him trying to explain to his wife, "It's me." I mean, it's such a cheesy show, especially when he becomes Little John. It's like this head, and it's just done in such a cheesy way. But I kind of liked it though. Another one is the Red Handed Gang. And it's another weird show from the 70s. It's about these kids, you know, this group of friends. It kind of has a vibe, almost like when they brought the show Ghost Rider in the 90s. It's almost like Ghost Rider without the aspect of the ghost thing typing. But it's a group of these friends that end up going on like adventures and solving mysteries and things like that. It's like one of them is like the one kid's monkey ends up getting kidnapped to try and rob a museum. The other one was like this kid that's missing, so they all end up trying to find him, and the things that they get into on the way. I don't know, it's a pretty fun, weird 70s show. A lot of cool old California locations in it, and a couple things, like I think they were in one point in the old LA Zoo, which now I think is all spray painted over. But I think it was like before like people had trashed it. The last ones I got is from Synopsis, and it's Basket Case 3, which is a seriously weird one. It kind of creeps me out a little bit, just because it's all these characters in these weird makeup and these weird looking big teeth monsters and stuff. There's just something creepy about it. Like if these things, you know, you went outside and you saw something like this, you'd probably have a heart attack. Like they're just so weird looking. And it's about like, I don't know if I've ever seen the sequel. I've seen this one a couple times though. I don't know if I've ever seen part 2 though. But it's, you know, the guy who had the conjoined twin on his side that escapes and kills women. And in the third one though, he's in this home where they keep like all kinds of deformed and these weird monsters and stuff. And it opens with the regular guy ends up killing this woman, and the conjoined twin gets this other conjoined twin pregnant. I think I need to watch the sequel. So, because I kind of never have known, really. I need to watch the sequel. But, you know, if they go on this kind of road trip to, you know, have the baby give birth. I mean, it is so beyond weird, the whole thing. Like, it's just weird. And the last one I just got, I was really glad to get this. I started watching this when I was away, you know, in New Orleans, and I really like this. I had never seen it before, and it's Check It Out with Steve Burrell. It's John C. Reilly, and it's from Tim and Eric, and you know, it's just this weird character he does. It's like, kind of like a public access show. Kind of reminds me of like a deranged Mr. Rogers, where it was like talking about a subject and him doing a man on the street interviews and all these weird things, and it's shot on videotape and real like crappy looking, and I love it. It's like really weird kind of, I like this kind of humor. It's very strange, and John C. Reilly's like this the whole time. John C. Reilly is really, really funny. This is definitely one I would check out, but like, it's not for everybody. Anyway though, that's all for this update. The next one will probably be in like a week and a half, 2 weeks or so. Thanks a lot for watching and for subscribing. I'll see you guys later.